I call Dr. Megan Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's my absolute pleasure to be given the opportunity by the whips to take a call on this piece of legislation.
It was me.
Pardon?
It was me who.
Oh no, but to be asked, Mr. Chairman, of the honour. But, Mr. Chairman, in all seriousness, this is an important piece of legislation, and it does allow me to think back to my former life before I entered this chamber and became an MP, where questions around the protections within our agricultural sector were absolutely vital. And, Mr. Chairman, the ability for New Zealand, the New Zealand agriculture and horticulture sector to innovate does require the ability to protect some of the knowledge and some of the science that sits behind some of the innovations that occur. And, Mr. Chairman, through the course of this legislation, my colleagues have talked about the fact that this has been a long time brewing, that this was a report that was produced in 2008, so there has been, you could say there has been ample time for considerations that were contained in the report. And what it comes down to, Mr. Chairman, about whether there was enough time given for companies to have intellectual property protections over over what they had created in order for them to give the incentives to innovate in there. But, Mr. Chairman, one of the most interesting aspects of this legislation for me is around the new use reformulations. And an example that has been worked through in some of the media that has gone through with the passage of this bill is around fodder beet and fodder brassica. Now, to many people, this would sound like a very technical split, but in order to use some of the agrochemicals on fodder beet crops rather than fodder brassica crops, there would have to be a new use reformulation, which would cost the company a huge amount of money. And, Mr. Chairman, it is important that we have the ability to nimbly experiment with different forms of ways of feeding cattle as we look to combat climate change, as we look beyond pasture, as ways of dairying. We look to some of the fodder beets and fodder brassicas in that respect, that there could be a way in which we could decrease methane within our farming systems. There's also the high-value nutraceuticals that in many ways just will go through and do a screening of many different cultivars and the germplasm of particular varietals to have a look what has the highest nutritional content. It is absolutely critical for New Zealand's nutraceutical industry to be able to move in this way. Because, Mr. Chairman, what we often think of when we think about the protection of IP is we think about our patents. But the reality, Mr. Chairman, in New Zealand, that so much of our IP isn't protected by patent law, it's protected by plant varietal rights, or it's protected under measures such as this, the agricultural compounds and veterinary medicines, because that is where so much of New Zealand's innovation rests, Mr. Chairman, that we invest so much in that sector and we have so many scientists that do perform at a very high level and create a huge amount of value for our economy. And it is vital that we put the right incentives in place for that innovation to be able to occur. But, Mr. Chairman, like everything, there has to be limits. That we have to make sure that the knowledge can get out there and it doesn't get locked up forever. Because research is something that is meant to be a collaborative process, that it is meant to be about a college of individuals working together for the betterment of knowledge and what we know as a society, Mr. Chairman. So this bill seeks to strike that balance between allowing companies the incentives they need to be able to innovate and also allowing a very strong agricultural science base in this country to flourish. So, Mr. Chairman, it's been a great honour to be able to take a call on the Agricultural Compounds and Veterinary Medicines Amendment Bill, and I am thankful for my opportunity to contribute to this debate.